All right, join us on the program right now. You know what? If Wolf Blitzer's not going to bring up the words Fast and Furious, we will. Katie Pavlich from Townhall.com has joined us. Katie, good evening. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. Was kind of hoping to hear a Fast and Furious question, but, we've gone this far into the debates without one. I guess what's one more, right?
I'm hoping that one of the candidates here will be smart and actually bring it up in their answer to this question, and bring it up in the sense that it's a foreign policy issue and it's a government's job to secure the border, and it doesn't make sense to give Mexican drug cartels 2,000 semi-automatic weapons when you know they're going to come right back across because the border's unsecure. So it is a national security issue, and I hope that one of them will be smart enough to insert it into their answer.
Well, I mean, you've had Rick Perry this week bring it up a couple of times, included in an editorial at the Washington Times. Michelle Bachmann has said that Eric Holder should resign if he knew about Fast and Furious. So a couple of the candidates on the stage have mentioned Fast and Furious. We'll see if either of those two, or perhaps one of the other candidates, brings it up. Cameron is monitoring, so he'll let us know if indeed the words Fast and Furious are uttered. But in the meantime, it's interesting to see what Senator Grassley's office has been doing, Katie, going back and sort of rebutting what the Democrats on the Senate Judiciary Committee have said about this whole investigation. Senator Schumer, for instance, said, quote, at the most recent hearing where Holder was at, he says, why I think it's important to have answers to this question is because there's been a selective way in which this investigation has been pursued so far. It's sort of one-sided outrage about the whole issue when we know now that it began, or its progenitor began, before you took office, before President Obama took office. Representative Maloney has an op-ed in the New York Daily News today basically asserting the same thing. This is a Republican red herring that is, manufacturing a scandal. But as Senator Grassley pointed out, it was actually the congressional investigators who were asking about these other operations long before DOJ even brought them up.
Right, and I think what Chuck Schumer is missing here, or maybe he's doing it on purpose, is the reason why we don't have all the information and everything else going on with these other operations is because the Justice Department refuses to give Grassley's office or even the House Oversight Committee any of the information. If there's a reason why it's one-sided outrage, it's because the Justice Department hasn't provided the necessary documents to make the outrage go on both sides. But this goes back to what we talked about before on your show, is this isn't a one-sided issue. This shouldn't be a partisan issue. This shouldn't be something that's just simply a Republican standpoint of a problem ethically. I mean, this is something that both sides of the aisle should be able to come to terms on, rather than Chuck Schumer or Senator Dianne Feinstein blaming gun laws in America or taking a stance on this. And they should be saying the entire thing's wrong, whether it was under Bush, whether it was under Obama. Everything about it was wrong, and people should be held accountable for it. But instead, they're trying to play this game where they deflect the heat away from Eric Holder, who was in charge during Operation Fast and Furious, and instead he's just willing to make it about a blame game when really it's about holding people accountable, making sure this doesn't happen again, and bringing justice to the families affected.
Absolutely. By the way, I'm sorry, I hate to interrupt, Katie, but Claude in Columbus just verbally smacked me down in the talkbacks. Fats Domino, not B.B. King, for Blueberry Hill.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah, Claude says, "Man, you are a youngster." Well, thank you, Claude. I'm nearly 40, but I'll take that description any day of the week. All right, now back to our more serious discussion, Katie, because you're absolutely right about what the Maloneys and the Schumers of the world, and over on the House side, Representative Elijah Cummings has been engaging in this sort of behavior as well. Their excuse is, look, this all started under the Bush administration, so clearly there's no scandal here, so let's talk about gun control.
Right. Well,
now,
and let's not forget, Cam, that a couple of months ago, intermediate ATF director Kenneth Nelson testified behind closed doors and said, "This is clear. They're stonewalling you because they're clearly trying to protect political appointees." So we've gone from protecting political appointees to throwing the ball over to let's blame Bush, rather than just getting to the bottom of what happened.
Absolutely right. And look, if what they were saying, if they really believed what they were saying, then they would say not only, well, we knew this happened under Bush, they'd say, let's get to the bottom of this. Let's hold investigations. Let's find out who put this plan together. Instead, what they're saying is, let's drop the whole thing. We don't want to talk about it anymore. We really don't want to talk about Fast and Furious. But, we're willing to not talk about wide receiver. We're willing to not talk about the Hernandez investigation. Let's talk about gun control instead.
Right. And to that point, it's great that some of these GOP candidates have come out and called for the resignation of Eric Holder. It's great that over 50 congressmen have called for the resignation of Eric Holder. But what these GOP presidential candidates should be talking about is, what are the consequences for people like Eric Holder? What are the consequences for Bill Newell and Gillette and all the guys out of the Phoenix ATF office who've been promoted to the Washington, D.C. office? What are the consequences for Lanny Brewer? I mean, they should be really talking about, if I beat Barack Obama in 2012, I'm going to bring them back in front of Congress, and we're going to have them stand trial. They're going to have to prove their innocence, because you know what? We know that there's things that have gone wrong here. It isn't just about someone stepping down and getting over it and making it go away. It's about holding people accountable and having them suffer consequences for their actions, not simply letting them step down and move on.
No, I agree completely. And, this isn't going away, because we know that early next month, before the House Judiciary Committee, Attorney General Holder is going to be testifying once again. And, I'm pretty sure, Katie, that we're going to hear more questions about when Attorney General Holder knew about Fast and Furious, and also more about the senior staff and the emails that have been going around, where Fast and Furious is being discussed while the operation is still ongoing, and certainly in the days after Agent Brian Terry was murdered, and all of the emails flying around at that point relating to Fast and Furious and Agent Terry's death, none of which, by the way, I think have been properly explained by anybody within the DOJ.
Right, exactly. No, and then this whole idea, I'm sure that we'll see Eric Holder during that testimony at the beginning of December refer back to his Inspector General, which we all know she worked for Eric Holder. She's clearly carrying the water for him, and they're going to pull this out as long as possible so people get bored and over the story. And like Jay Dobbins has said, he had an Inspector General report issued about threats made against him, and it was worthless. So really, we're waiting around and being stonewalled for a worthless report that isn't going to hold anyone accountable for their actions, not to mention that there's a conflict of interest between the two, Holder and his Inspector General.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. Listen, Katie, I can't thank you enough for coming on the program tonight. Enjoy your Thanksgiving, and we'll be sure to talk to you again very soon.
Sounds like a plan. Keep doing what you're doing, Cam.
All right, thanks, Katie. Katie Pavlich joined us from townhall.com.